Observe. The primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation itself, but your thoughts about it. You have a voice in your head, but you don't realize it, because you believe that voice is who you are. Nobody realizes this, because most of us suffer from it, and we consider it normal. While you think, you believe that you are the one doing the thinking. We believe in this voice and identify with it, and so we are always thinking. Right now, that voice in your head is saying something like, "I don't have a voice in my head." This incessant mental noise prevents us from finding the area of inner serenity. And thus, we cannot discover who we really are. This creates a false self in the mind, projecting a shadow of fear and suffering over us. The compulsive thinker, that is, almost everyone, lives in a world full of conflicts and problems. Therefore, imbalance thinking has become a disease. If used correctly, the mind is a magnificent instrument. However, when we use it incorrectly, it becomes destructive. For example, there is nothing wrong with the division and multiplication of cells in the human body. But when this process happens without considering the whole organism, the cells proliferate and we have disease. To be even more precise, it is not you who uses your mind wrongly. In general, you simply don't use the mind. It's the mind that uses you. And that's the disease. You believe to be your mind. You believe that you are your thoughts. There lies the delusion. The instrument has taken control of you. Understand this. Can you get rid of your mind when you want? Have you found the button to turn it off? If not, it's because the mind is using you. The fact is that we are so identified with it that we don't even realize we are its slaves. You are not your mind. If someone goes to a doctor and says, "I hear a voice inside my head," they will probably be referred to a psychiatrist. In one way or another, virtually everyone hears one or more voices all the time inside their heads. These are involuntary thought processes that we believe we cannot interrupt, manifesting as continuous monologues or dialogues. The voice comments, speculates, judges, compares, excuses, likes, dislikes, etc. The voice doesn't have to be relevant to the present moment. It can be reliving the recent or distant past, or rehearsing or imagining possible future situations. Sometimes this mental soundtrack is accompanied by images or mental movies. And so, we see and judge the present with the eyes of the past, constructing a totally distorted image. It is not uncommon for this voice to become our worst enemy. Many people live with a torturer in their heads that attacks and punishes them endlessly, draining all their vital energy. This is the cause of much distress and unhappiness, as well as illness. Well, the good news is that we can free ourselves from our minds. This is the only true liberation. Take the first step now. Start paying attention to what the voice says, especially repetitive thought patterns. Those old soundtracks you've been listening to inside your head for years. Freedom begins when we realize we are not the dominating entity, the thinker. Knowing this allows us to observe the entity. Be the observer of your thoughts. You are beneath the thinking. Here, you are the stillness amidst the mental noise. You are consciousness disguised as a person. As soon as we start observing the thinker, we activate a higher level of consciousness. We begin to realize that there is a vast area of intelligence beyond thought, and thought is just a small aspect of intelligence. We also realize that all truly important things like beauty, love, creativity, joy, and inner peace arise from a point beyond the mind. This is when we start to awaken. Just observe. Listen to the voice inside your head. Be present there as a witness. Be impartial when listening to this voice. Don't judge anything. Don't judge or condemn what you hear, because doing so would mean that the same voice has coming through the back door. You soon realize, there's the voice, and here I am, listening to it, observing it. Feeling your own presence is not a thought. It's something that arises from a point beyond the mind. Thus, when you hear a thought, it means you are conscious not only of the thought, but yourself as the witness of the thought. This happens because a new dimension of consciousness has just arisen. When you hear the thought, you feel a conscious presence that is your innermost self behind the thought. The thought then loses the power it had over you and quickly recedes. Because the mind is no longer receiving the energy generated by your identification with it. This is the beginning of the end of involuntary and compulsive thinking. When the thought recedes, we perceive an interruption in the mental stream, a space of empty mind. Initially, these spaces are short, perhaps just a few seconds, but gradually they become longer. When these spaces occur, we feel a certain serenity and inner peace. This is the beginning of the natural state of feeling connected with being, which is normally obscured by the mind. This is not a selfish state, but a state of generosity. With brackets, the feeling of peace and serenity intensifies. In fact, this intensifies has no end. You will feel a subtle emanation of joy welling up from within, which is the joy of being. In this state of inner connection, we become very alert. We are wholly present. As we penetrate more deeply into this area of empty mind, we begin to perceive the state of pure consciousness. In this state, we feel our own presence with such intensity and joy that thoughts, emotions, our body, the external world, everything becomes insignificant compared to it. Another possible method, apart from observing the thinker, is to create a gap in the stream of the mind by directing our attention fully to the present moment. Becoming aware of this present moment here and now. By doing so, we divert consciousness away from mental activity and create a space of empty mind. Where we become extremely alert and conscious. This is the essence of meditation. In daily life, we can put these into practice by giving full attention to any routine activity, usually consider it merely as a means to an end, transforming it into an end in itself. For example, every time you go up or down the stairs, at home or work, pay close attention to each step, each movement, even your breath. Or when you're washing your hands, pay attention to all the sensations caused by this activity. Just pay attention in the present moment. It will be hard in the beginning. Like the sound, the contact with water, the movement of your hands, the smell of the soap, and so on. Or when you get into your car, pause for a few seconds after closing the door, if you can, and observe the flow of your breath. Be fully present. be aware of a silent yet powerful sense of presence. Every time we create a gap in the stream of thought, the light of consciousness intensifies. To measure your success in this practice, check the degree of peace within you. Thus, progressively, we lose identification with the mind and become associated with silence, the now. By following this practice of presence and observing thoughts, one day you may find yourself smiling at the voice inside your head, just as you would smile at a child's antics. This means you are no longer taking what goes on in the mind so seriously, because your inner self no longer depends on it. In summary, our greatest obstacle is that we identify ourselves with the mind. This is the most crucial step on the path to enlightenment. It is learning to dissociate ourselves from our minds. And this change is available and within reach of everyone, here and now.